Hello, welcome to this week's How's the Market, Pensacola. Well, the foreclosures are on the rise. We've got an extra inventory, and so the market must be going down. Okay, let's talk about it. If you have watched this show, you know I've been doing this since April of 2019 on this particular show. And if you go back to our first episode, first of all, forgive the quality, we're learning. But I talked about and showed how we had buyers markets at certain price points, hyper buyers markets at certain price points. And this is just 2019, so it's not like it's that long ago. Okay, and then we got that 2020 and 2021 anomaly that happened to where we just pulled down to a hyper sellers market all the way around. So the demand was huge, supply was low, and we just had a huge, constant sellers market, hyper sellers market. So what were we complaining about in 2021? Well, the buyers were definitely complaining about inventory levels. Sellers were not complaining because they were getting more than what they're asking for. Of course, they were worried that they're selling too soon. So now it's like, well, I don't want to give up, some people that sold early 2021 or even early 2020 have called, and I've had conversations with them. They're like, we regretted that, but it made sense at the time for them. They just saw what they missed. And what is it? We're always wanting to see what we missed. No, that was a good decision at the time with the information you had at the time. But what we've been complaining about for 2 years is inventory levels. Now that we're starting to get into price points that have a neutral market, I did say that. If you watch the show, you know I've been saying that for a minute, that we're going to get there. We're there. You'll see in a minute. I'll show you the numbers. Now that we're starting to get to price points that have a neutral market, everybody's wanting to know when the foreclosures are coming, because we were so hyper sellers. Now that we're gaining inventory, we're doing the exact same thing we were asking for. Now they want to know when the foreclosures are coming. Well, they're not. If you're waiting for a big foreclosure crash like we saw in 2008, it's not coming. I'm going to actually put a link below. It's going to take you to a site to where I just did like a 35-minute video. I did it about a week ago. And I talked about, hey, how are home mortgage rates impacting buyers right now? What's going on with foreclosures? What are some options sellers can use? 3-2-1 buy downs. What are some assumptions? What are some things that we can do? What are some tools that we haven't had to use in 7, 8, 9 years? I literally had one of my newer agents come to me and ask me, boss, what do they mean by the word price reduction? Okay, well, that means that they reduced the price. And I paused for a second because I was like, really? But then I thought about it, and they haven't been in the market but 2 years. That's the only time they've been in the industry. So they just didn't know. And I wonder if I've got agents coming to me as the broker going, hey, what does this mean? How many agents out there don't even go to their broker, don't have access to their broker, or can't, they're with a company that just doesn't have the same formula to where they're kind of on their own. And now they're like struggling. That's why we're seeing some people exit the business now. I've looked at some of the data in both Escambia and Santa Rosa County, so the Pensacola Association of Realtors and the Baldwin Association of Realtors. And it seems like we have more people deactivating than we do activating. So we have some people leaving the business. That's fine. That's okay. It was a hyper sellers market for a long time. Inventory is still low, but we're starting to get some of the inventory. Just don't equate that to thinking that we're going to have a price fall, because we're not. We're not. Like I said, there's a whole link down there. You can put it on 1.5 so it doesn't take 30 minutes, but there's good training there, right? There's good training that I'm just giving away for free. I don't want to do it on this show because I try and keep this show under 15 minutes, and just covering 4 main points took me well over half an hour, 35 minutes, I want to say, or 34, something like that. So just covering those points were there, but I'll definitely put the link. Go check that out. So, foreclosure crisis averted. All right. Do we have foreclosures? Have we seen some come on? Sure. Yeah. And I talk about that in that show. Why we have them. Why we had them, past tense, in 2005 and 2006 when we were in the boom, right? But I also showed some interesting data about as 212,000 foreclosures were filed nationwide in the second quarter, how many of them had equity? There's your difference between what we saw then and what we saw now. And I've been preaching that for a while. But let's get to our numbers. I hope everybody is uncomatose from the Thanksgiving lunch. I know we had a good one here. But let's just get to our numbers with these two counties and show you that neutral market. Let's go. All right, if you hadn't seen the show, you don't know that I always start with this slide right here. It says if we have between 6 and 7 months worth of inventory, we have what's called a neutral market. If we have less than 6 months inventory, it's called a seller's market. If we have more than 7 months inventory, it's called a buyer's market, what the slide doesn't say. Anything greater than 9 months is called a hyper buyers. Anything less than 3 months, considered a hyper sellers. Let's start with Escambia County. Oh my goodness. You look down at the very bottom, it's luxury. It's luxury. I'm not going to put in suspense anymore. 700,000 plus in Escambia County, 6.3 months worth of inventory. It's the first time I've seen yellow on these charts since the beginning of 2020. All right. I don't know that we'll see blue. We may, because this is coming up on December. So cyclically, we have less inventory during the holidays than we do in the spring buying season, which will start in January for us. All right, us literally come New Year's is when people start looking for property here because we're not dealing with the snow that some of the rest of the country is. So people will start hunting for property, you start getting income tax returns. And the National Association of Realtors actually did a study a couple of years ago, it's quite a few years ago, that said the biggest day that people search for real estate online is December 27th. That is the largest day that people come and actually are searching for houses. And that makes sense. Christmas is over, the holidays are done. They may be visiting someone, they're looking around. They're also thinking about New Year's and what they want to do next year. And let's take a look. So I can see that being a big day. So we'll start to see some inventory rise cyclically come January, February, March. All right, so this is a lower end and we're at neutral here. Do I think the luxury may hit the buyer's market? Yeah. Does that mean that we're going to go down in price? No, I don't think so. I don't think so. We're going to come more realistic in price because I actually saw some people that have reached out to me going, Shane, I've seen some price reductions. You have. If you watch the market, if you study the market like I do, you are going to see price reductions on the MLS. One of the reasons you're seeing that is because they started way too high. They were trying to get too much appreciation and they're having to come back down to reality. This has been a tough conversation I've had with sellers lately because a lot of sellers still think it's 2021 and a lot of buyers are thinking it's 2010 to where they can offer 20% below, ask for all the closing costs paid. And those two are at each other right now. So these are tough conversations I'm having on both sides of the table. All right, but we're not at 2021 and we're not at 2010. If you look here in Escambia County, things are still selling 98 to 100%. Now that differs, like let's look right here, 150,000 to 200,000. We have 1.5 months worth of inventory. That used to be like 0.4. So that's triple in inventory, okay? We're also right here where it says selling between 98 and 99% of list. That was over 100% earlier this year. Over 100% earlier this year. So 200,000 to 250,000 seems to be selling right at 100%. But these are not 94, 84. Now, up to 50,000, 0 to 50,000, yeah, they're selling for 74 to 84%. 50,000 to 100,000 selling for 93% to 100%. There's damage there. There's damaged property, so they get negotiated. It's no different than any other negotiation, all right? We're selling stuff over, we're selling stuff under. So that's what I'm trying to talk to my sellers. It's not 2021 where you're going to get 10% over your asking price and an appraisal waiver. All right. And I'll tell you the story. I had a property. I found it extremely ironic, extremely ironic. I had a property on 79th Avenue that I sold early this year. All right. I want to say it was February or March. We put it on the market. I specifically talked with the seller. This was a strategy that we talked about. This is not the strategy that I would use right now. All right, totally different market. That's why you need to have someone that's watching the market and talking about the different strategies. The strategy we did, it was priced about here. We came in slightly under. So I guess I should do this, right? So it was priced here. We came in slightly under. I did that on purpose because I knew it was a hyper seller's market and I knew that the buyer's agents would do my job for me. All right, so we came in, we got all the pre-marketing stuff, got it ready, and when we launched it, I literally got a call from the neighbor the day we launched it, asking me when we were going to take an offer because there were 25 cars parked up and down the street going to see it. The ironic part about that deal was the property was on 79th Avenue. I got 79 offers. 79. That's interesting for a seller to go through and go, okay, let's take a look at each one of these offers. We did. We walked through them. I walked through and had a whole spreadsheet. I spent a couple hours. I may or may not have had a bottle of wine or glass of wine. Did I say bottle? While I was putting this spreadsheet together. But then, I talked with the seller and we worked through things and I showed them exactly, and they got a great deal. A lot of appraisal waivers. These things are not happening these days. I had a seller ask me the other day, I represent the buyer, and I had a seller ask me, hey, will you give me an appraisal waiver if it doesn't appraise? The buyer went emphatically, no, we're not doing that. Those days were rare, and it was about an 18-month period that happened. Those days are gone. Most people are not willing to, because let's face it, if you pay more than the appraised value, you are overpaying for the property, and most people aren't. Will I say 100% of the time? No, because I never say 100% of the time. Because, I've seen people way overpay for something, but it come to find out it was a foreclosure and it was a family house that got foreclosed. Grandma grew up there and then it got out of the family and now it was being foreclosed. And so now somebody overpaid for the property to bring it back into the family. So it was a sentimental, it wasn't a logical. But for the majority of the time, we're not going to overpay for stuff. So sorry about that. I was going, if we do have a neutral market, which we do, 6.3 months at the luxury, but if you look all the way up to 400,000 in Escambia County is still a hyper seller's market. So for the majority of the properties, it's still a hyper seller's market. And honestly, I could probably say all the way up to 550,000 because we do have one orange here at 400,000 to 450,000, but it's right at the 3 months. Our definition says anything under 3 months is a hyper seller's. This one's right at the 3 months, so it's considered just a seller's. Would I change the marketing? No. Would I tell my buyer to do things differently than if it was a hyper seller's? No, not at that point. 550,000 to 600,000, we got 5.1 months. So that may be the next pocket to where we see neutral. But at 700,000, when we got neutral, if you do a luxury, if you're listing a luxury property right now, if you're going to sell one of those, let's talk because that changes. Marketing's got to change. You've got to be able to put stuff out there. We got 113 properties right now that are active for sale. You better differentiate. I've seen a couple that come on 3 million, 4 million, and they definitely differentiated. So it worked out well. Let's jump over to Santa Rosa real quick. There's nothing under 100 grand. Nothing. We do have 638 active. If you guys have watched this show, remember when that was 200 and something? So that's triple the numbers. But there's nothing under 100 grand. Nothing. And under 150 grand, there's one. That's the seasonality I'm talking about. That's where the market, is what I'm trying to tell you guys. The market will talk to you when it talks to numbers. So it's talking to us with numbers. Under 150,000 in Santa Rosa County, there is one. Under 200,000, there's, 17. So there's 16 between 150 and 200,000 and one between 100,000 and 150,000. Besides that, now, there is nothing here that's a neutral market. Even the luxury, which is the highest months, is 4.1. So it's still a seller's, not a hyper seller's. And pretty much everything else. You've got 3.2 months in that 400,000 to 450,000, but just like in Escambia County, I would still count that as a hyper seller's. 3.7 months is at 600,000 to 650,000, which has always been a weird market in Santa Rosa County. For some reason, that price point seems to be strange. I don't know. And then we got 4.1 months and 700,000. Everything else, look at this. 150,000 to 200,000, 1.8 months worth of inventory. 1 month inventory, 1.1 month inventory, 1.2 months inventory. What does that mean? I haven't said this in a while, so some people that are like, what does that mean, 1.2 months? If this says 1 month's inventory and it's 200,000 to 250,000, that means if we do not get new properties coming on the market after a month, we will be out of houses. We'll be done. The market will assimilate 1 month. That's what it's basically predicting. It'll only take 1 month to take care of those 24 properties that are active. So that's our numbers for these two. I always end the show talking about our instant offer program, which I got about 3 phone calls over the Thanksgiving holiday over. Basically, our instant offer program is set out there to where if you have a property that, usually we get properties that need a bunch of work, or if there's some title issues, or if there's some, inherited properties. I got one, I think I've told this story a couple of times, where a guy called me up and said, hey, listen, I watched your show. We want to talk about your instant offer program. I have not even been in Florida for the last 20 years, but we just inherited this property. I have no idea what condition it's in, everything else. So we worked it out to where they worked out things well. I had another one that had an instant offer program. They had a heck of a job offer, but they had to be in Dallas in 10 days. So they needed to close quick. All right, that made sense. Plus I needed quite a bit of work in that property. So that's what the instant offer there is for. I represent a conglomerate of investors that I'll come out and give you an offer within 24 hours. Once I walk in, 24 hours, and it's usually the same day, depending on when I walk in. I mean, if I walk in at 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, it may be the next morning. But usually if I walk in the morning, I'll have something to you that afternoon. Because we'll run the numbers, we'll take a look, and I can tell you what an investor would offer. You can use that as a floor if it doesn't work for you. All right, so some people say, okay, well, this is the floor. Let's see if we can get more by coming on the market, and we'll bring it on the market on the MLS, see if we can get more. If we can't, they know this is the absolute floor. That's worked both ways. I've brought properties on, when I made this offer, I've brought properties on, they've gotten more. I've brought properties on, and the MLS, they got offered less. So at least they know this is what the minimum is. And some people, it actually works out really well. It's obviously as is, you don't need anything else. So I got a link below to check that out if you want more information, or just reach out to me. Either way. So there's that. I put that link. I also put the link to the video I did, 35 minutes of training about what we're looking at in the market right now. What are the foreclosures? What are the mortgages? Where's everything going, and how does that impact? Is it a good time to buy? I don't always say it is. And I bring that up in that video, so go watch that video too. All right. Oh man, 17, 18 minutes. I try and keep these under 15, but it's hard to do. Thanks for watching. Have a great week. Happy holidays.
I'm a man on a mission.
My mission is to help people break through all the noise out there, and
Don't need no permission.
I want to help you get to actual truth. Don't you just want the truth?